This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Hi, I'm Cyndi Lauper. My scalp was covered with psoriasis, which could lead to psoriatic arthritis. But Cosentyx treats both.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis 300 milligram dose and adults with active psoriatic arthritis 150 milligram dose. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at Cosentyx.com or 1-844-COSENTYX.
Cosentyx works for me.
Ask your doctor about Cosentyx.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Mark from Rams up here. What is going on? I got Scott back with me. Scott Richmond, how you doing, man?
Doing great, Mark. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, a little bit of the doldrums right now. Again, Rams in Maui, mandatory mini camp. And, Ian and I have been finding things to talk about, little bits of news. But I thought I'd come up with some questions that you and I will try to answer, questions that have been the back of my mind, trying to figure out what the answer might be. And we'll just give it a shot, something to talk about, have some fun with it. The first thing I wanted to ask, this Darion Kendrick situation, it's kind of interesting. So if I understand how this all went down, he's on his $3 million contract. And, the Rams, I guess, just came to the conclusion that that doesn't work for them. So apparently they had a conversation with him. Hey, we're going to waive you. We'd love to have you back at a lower price. But there's always the risk someone's going to, sign him, claim him. Now, I don't know if anyone attempted to sign him. But regardless, he came back to LA and maybe he just wants to play for the Rams or at least try to make the roster. So I'm trying to figure out, if the Rams are willing to waive him and take that risk, there's some really promising young cornerbacks on this roster. I mean, not like, CB1 type talent, but a lot of guys competing for spots. So I'm trying to figure out, gauge how the Rams really feel about Darion Kendrick. And you can't go by, what the coaches say, the coach speak and all that. It's kind of guesswork for us. How you feeling about Darion Kendrick right now and the prospects of him coming back and making this 53-man roster?
Mixed bag. First thing was, if we were having this conversation in pre-draft, I would say he would probably be one of the guys that I would probably pencil in for being cut, just for salary purposes.
But then they didn't draft any cornerbacks, right?
Yeah, and considering the number of guys they already had under contract in addition to that. So with that being said, I am intrigued by what I think there was some truth to what the coaching staff said, as he was playing really well in the OTAs this time last year and going into
Right.
training camp. And then he got injured. So it's like, wow, I was really curious to see what he improved upon in their scheme because, again, he's kind of an enigma. He doesn't have the foot speed to run with receivers intermediate to long routes, but he's very good in zone playing receivers close to the line of scrimmage and being feisty. So I'm curious to see what he was showing last year, and maybe we'll get a chance to see it in training camp. Maybe.
Yeah, and I'm sure he'll play a lot in spring and the preseason. And he's actually one of the bigger cornerbacks too. I looked at the
Mhm.
cornerbacks on the roster, and him and AJ Green, two of the bigger cornerbacks competing for spots. So,
Right.
we'll see how that works out. Yeah, I find myself rooting for him. I don't know. I'm not even sure why, but he's got a little bit of swag. He's made some knucklehead plays over the year, but he's made some good plays too. And he's a young guy. And yeah, we'll see. I think the Rams are in an interesting situation with their cornerbacks. I've
Mhm.
been saying it all spring and early summer. A lot of guys. Do they have a difference makers? I'm not sure. We'll find out.
Yeah, I'll just have just two things to finish this one up with. I think by the end of last season, I think as a group, the DBs were playing great, against the Vikings and against the Eagles. So I don't think I think it's just the combination of players that you put on the field in addition to
Right.
the pass rush. It really, whether there's a cornerback one or a cornerback three,
Right.
I'm not too concerned. But the other thing is, I think there's so much competition that if you wanted to give me a percentage, I'd say it's 65% sure that he probably ends up getting cut
Yeah.
by the
Okay.
final.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to next. And by the way, I was originally characterizing this as my fearsome four questions, but I ended up with seven. So this is my fearsome seven questions. And the
Awesome.
second question has to do, and this may be one of the shorter conversations. Stetson Bennett is another guy we're going to see a whole lot in the preseason. Rams have not added another quarterback, so we could see Stetson Bennett taking every single snap unless they add someone. And maybe Jimmy G gets on the field a little bit.
Hmm.
But geez, it's we'd hope that he shows something a little more this preseason. But even if he does, this roster, in my opinion, I looked at down to the 53rd man, and there's going to be some cuts that are going to be pretty painful, and maybe waiving Stetson Bennett and getting him onto the practice squad alleviate some of that pain, carry one less quarterback.
Hmm.
And I don't know. How do you feel about it? Is that where Stetson Bennett is headed?
I think so. I think with the not to cut into question number three, but due to issues in other position groups, I
Right.
think they're not going to have the room or the benefit to keep him as a third quarterback. So
Yeah.
I would, if I was a betting man, I would say there's a chance that he may have to go on. He may have to be cut, and hopefully they can put him on the practice squad.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know if he's worthy of picking up. It may depend on how he performs in the preseason.
Hmm.
If he performs just okay, he ends up on the practice squad. If he performs really well, maybe someone puts in a claim for him.
Hmm.
Now, you alluded to the third question here, and it has to do with the offensive line, specifically left tackle. And I think
Hmm.
what you're alluding to is, do the Rams carry, for example, 10 offensive linemen, where they have done that in the past,
Hmm.
and they've snuck by with eight, at times, and nine as well.
Yes.
So, right now, let's just, for this question, presume Alaric Jackson can't go. Is DJ Humphreys the answer? Is he up to the task? How do you feel about that?
Well, that's a great question. I'd have to say if it was 2022, I'd be double thumbs up. I think his play has deteriorated a little bit. Um, I think in 2022 with Arizona, I think he had a pass blocking grade of about 80, which is pretty gosh darn good, upper
Right.
echelon. 2000, was that 2020? Yeah, 22. 2023, it dipped to 68. And then he joined the Chiefs last year. And in a limited role, I think he had 69 pass protection plays. I think he gave up 11 pressures. So he only had a grade of 31.
Yeah.
So I
Now,
think his pass protection skills, I think, are diminishing quickly.
yeah, the one thing that I'm not sure how big of a factor it is that he tore his ACL at the end of 2023, I think, right? And came back. And so, was he 100% when he was trying to make a difference with the
Mm.
Chiefs? I hope he's, I hope I hope it was partly due to health. And then we also have to hope that, a new coach, new offensive line coach, new unit, maybe it rejuvenates him and he steps up. But it's the funny thing is, not really funny, but maybe the scary thing is, I saw someone on the YouTube channel. I was like, oh, we need to invest some money in the tackle position, go out and get somebody. Eh, I don't know there is anybody,
Nope.
unless you're I talked to Ian about this, and it's like you think that you can just load up some draft picks and go get yourself a stud left tackle, and it's just not easy. It might be. It's easier midway through the season before the trading deadline if there's a
Mhm.
team that is 3-10 or whatever, and trying to load up
Mhm.
for next year. But yeah, maybe too late. So yeah, I guess neither of us are really going to have the answer there, but it's certainly a situation to monitor because I don't have a real good feeling about Lyric Jackson being ready on opening day. That's for sure.
Yeah, his situation is odd to me because I come from a position of going through blood clots recently, and the first time I had them, they were able to be removed out of my leg, but the doctors didn't know what it came from, and therefore only put me on blood thinners for a limited time period. And eventually, the blood clots came back, and I had to have a second procedure done, and now I'm on them probably for the rest of my life, but I'm fine now. So for his blood clots to come back in his professional position, it's really it's wow. It's like how did this happen with being a professional athlete and having all this? So I don't know whether his blood clots can be removed or if they just have to put him on blood thinners. I just don't know how this is going to keep him from coming back and joining the team. So if I was a betting man, I'd have to say he should hopefully be back at training camp,
Oh, so
come
you
end of July.
so you're more hopeful. That's good.
I'm more hopeful
Yeah.
because the blood clots, if they say they're not going to remove them, then they're just going to leave them and just stay on blood thinners. Then whether you sit in a chair all day or go out and play football, it doesn't change your medical condition with it. As
Oh,
far as I know,
okay.
my experience, I could be wrong, but that's what I understand.
Oh, I wasn't aware that you had some personal firsthand experience with that. So that's a
Yeah.
good discussion. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, we're all over the place here at Rams Up on opinions. Ian is
Mhm.
very pessimistic. I had someone chime in privately, and he take this with a grain of salt. He said, but he does have a little bit of knowledge about it, and he would be really worried if he even continued playing. And then I'm kind of in the middle. I have to think that the Rams have the resources and the medical staff to get things right for him eventually, and then you maybe the most
Mhm.
optimistic. So all over the
Yeah.
place. That's the best we can do.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll just finish that up. After my second procedure, I was able to go back and eventually get back to playing basketball 2, 3 days a week. So,
Oh,
uh,
nice.
so that was good news for me. But again, I don't know his situation exactly. So,
Yeah, and I think the are you talking pickup basketball or a league or
just pick up, where you
like
play two
it?
or three games over, a 2 hour period.
Yeah, and that can get physical too. A lot of body
Yeah.
contact, especially from what I hear from my special assistant. You get some guys out there that basically aren't very good players and are the ones that create unnecessary contact and,
Mm-hmm.
just make dangerous plays, that type of thing.
Yeah, I'm preaching to the
Okay.
choir.
Yeah, right. Okay, question number 4, and this one, let me explain where I'm coming from on this question. Who will not produce as much as fans expect? Tutu Atwell, Jordan Whittington, or Mumfield? And I don't mean who's going to produce the least. Who's going to produce less than we expect? I would expect Tutu and Whittington in that order to be the top 2 receivers after Puka and Devontae. And then there's Mumfield, who we don't even know if he's going to get on the field at all. But from what I'm hearing, eventually he's going to get some snaps. Who do you think might disappoint us just a little bit as far as their production this year? I guess I was trying to explain the other day, to Ian, is we talked about it. Everybody thinks Devontae's going to have a great year. Terrence Ferguson, Higbee's going to bounce back. Puka's big time. There's only so many passing yards, receiving yards on a docket, right? So someone's going to have to disappoint a little bit, I think. How do you feel about it?
Right. I would have to say that personally, I don't think there's going to be any, let's say, drop off in production. Because I think you and I probably know how some of these players will be utilized, and there's just not going to be a lot of. They're going to be on the field, but there's not going to be a lot of opportunities for touches. So
Targets.
Forth. So when we talk about Whittington, I mean he's going to probably be pulling a lot of that dirty work where he's playing a lot in the middle of the field, where Puka and Cooper Kupp used to do a lot, where you're in close to the line of scrimmage, and on a lot of plays you're run blocking. And on some plays you're going out for a pass, but you're going to get bumped by a defensive player before you get out into your route. So he's going to do a lot more of the dirty work. And through the average fan's eyes, he's not going to be seeing the ball as much as Tutu and Puka and Devontae. So I'd have to say Tutu will get a little bit more production than what he's had, which should be right in line. Whittington will be he'll be 4th or 5th. And then I think we'll only see Mumfield if there's some injuries.
So. I was kind of leaning towards Mumfield as well, because it happens occasionally. Every other year, it seems like there's a young receiver that Ram fans get all spun up about. And then, come opening day, they disappear for 10 games, So that would be my vote for Mumfield. Although from what I hear, he does have a future in the National Football League. But it's probably going to be a significant event that's going to, provide an opportunity for him, and a significant event we might not want to see. But maybe down the road, he's a guy that develops into a really good receiver. There's really good things about him.
Yeah, he's one of the guys I'm going to really be watching in preseason.
Yeah,
really
he's a guy that. Yeah, he's at least a guy that'll get on the field. I assume that Whittington will as well, and there's a couple other guys, Drake Stoops. Someone's got to play, so we'll see how that plays out. Now, my next question, I have asked this a couple of times, and I apologize. I may have already asked you this before, but let's consider. And I know it depends on what the offense is doing, which offense you're trying to defend, which team it is. But let's just say, for argument's sake, Omar Speights is our number 1 linebacker, and that doesn't mean he's going to be on the field every down. I get it. But who is that LB2? Who is that linebacker 2? You got the rookie Pooh Paul. A lot of people think it's going to be Nate Landman. At least the beginning of the year, it probably will be Nate Landman, even though Troy Reader's listed as the starter, I think, on most depth charts I've seen. That's just a matter of respect, I think. But, fast forward, let's say after the Rams bye week, who do you think? Do you think Pooh Paul has emerged as that guy, or is it still Landman, or what's your best guess?
I think Chris Paul will be one of the 2 starting linebackers by that time of the season.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. And that's no disrespect to Nate Landman. I like his style of play, and I think he's a good addition.
Mhm.
Dealing with run game, the run defense, and as soon as Paul can prove that he can hold up and run defense, which I think he can, it'll be
Mhm.
Pooh Paul time.
Yeah,
Okay,
the only other thing I would say is, as much as Rams fans really loved when Omar Speights had the opportunity to play, I still think what his forte is staying, playing between the tackles, identifying
right.
the hole where the runner is coming from, getting to there, avoiding a block, and making a tackle. But when tackles, or I should say, when the ball goes wide and it's a wide run, I just don't think he has the I don't think he has the foot speed or the tracking ability to play wide. Um,
He
and I think
can't play that.
I think that's where some of the younger players are going to outshine him, and that might show through after 10 to 16 games. Who
Yeah,
knows? It could be Paul and Dolak by
right. I was going to mention
the end
him.
of the
Yeah,
season. Yeah, because I
yeah.
think those are
Dolak.
the two. I think those are the two most athletic and fastest linebackers they have. In
Yeah, and
that,
and Pooh Paul, I know, I don't know if you saw the draft room, and you could tell that they are watching Pooh Paul tape.
uh
And there was I think there was an instance where Sean McVay said, "Look at man, he just sees it and he goes." And it's kind of like, I'm not predicting he's going to be the next Fred Warner, but that ability just to get to the ball carrier
mhm.
outside the hash marks, just man, so fast and so quick and make the tackle. And yeah, Sean Dolak is another guy that, man, just a pure football player. So yeah, Rams have
Mhm.
some options there. If Troy Reader ends up being our fifth best linebacker, that's not too bad, but we'll see.
Right.
Um, okay, what else we got? And this one, I mixed up the order here, so this may surprise you. And I was listening to Colin Cowherd today, and he was talking about Pro Football Focus apparently created uh, the off seasons for each team, and one of the teams he loves, what they did, or Pro Football Focus loved, is what Arizona did.
Mhm.
He thinks they're going to have a really good defense. I kind of predicted that last year, and I think I was partly right.
Mhm.
So he's predicting. I think Cullen is on that bandwagon. Arizona could be pretty good, and then Pro Football Focus rated the 49ers offseason as one of the worst, and it's understandable. They're just trying to turn over that roster, but they just have so many draft picks the last 3 years that have not
Mhm.
panned out. It's just crazy, and it's just not getting better. And so, everybody's talking about this their draft class this year, and revamping that defensive line and bringing this guy in and that guy in, but the history isn't there to demonstrate that we should be hopeful, or 49er fans should be hopeful, that John Lynch is suddenly nailing these draft picks like the Rams have been. So I
Mhm.
guess what I'm getting at, I'm just trying to set the stage here. I know that 49ers have the easy schedule, and I know they have a lot of really, really good players.
Mhm.
Arizona is going to be improved, I think. And, remember, there was times last year where they were really a dangerous team. And then the Seahawks, I can't figure them out.
Mhm.
They're also changing over the roster. So all that said, who finishes in last place in the NFC West?
Well, I think it's going to be between the Seahawks and the Cardinals.
Yeah, you still think they're going to be bottom feeders?
I think
Yeah.
so. I
Do
think
you, do you,
it's that Cardinals coach's second year, and he's a defensive coordinator, and they did add some players, but I don't think their defense got much better last year. I think they're going to be a little better, but again, their offense, they didn't do anything to improve their offensive line, really, and their offense is very inconsistent. They can look like a playoff team in the first 4 weeks, and then look like the worst team in the league the last 4 weeks. So they still have to prove that they're consistent. Um, the Seahawks changing quarterbacks completely. Um, I don't know. There's still a big question mark. I think their defense is more consistent than the Arizona Cardinals. But then again, their offensive line has been horrible. They drafted well to improve that offensive line, but they still have to prove it that they can play together as a unit. So, and I think the 49ers, I think they drafted to fix their run defense. And if they fix their run defense, they're going to be near the top of the division, because the reason they didn't get anywhere is because of all the injuries they had last year. So I still think they're better than the other two.
Yeah, and the schedule is going to help them out as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the Seahawks, although I just feel like, on the one hand, the Seahawks, it's a changing of the guard there, much like San Francisco, but they lost some, Tyler Lockett, I think, was a very important player to that team. And I think, and losing your quarterback, DK Metcalf as well, there's just maybe too much change in one season from key guys that are, in leadership positions. But I still like their coach, and they have a smattering of some really good players across that roster. And they're just all, how long has it been since Seattle really sucked? It's been a long time. They're always there, it seems like. And I think Rams Seahawks games are some of the most entertaining. Rams 49er games are just really stressful. They're entertaining as well, but they seem to be more stressful. At least that's how I feel. Okay, I got one last question. Question number 7. And, this goes back to, it depends on how many defensive linemen the Rams carry. But right now, Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, Poona Ford, Tyler Davis, Ty Hamilton, Deshaun Johnson, Laurel Murchison. There's 7 guys there. On the screen, it looks like I'm calling out Davis Hamilton, missed a comma there. Davis and Hamilton, a second-year defensive lineman and a rookie. And I think the first, 5 here, Turner, Fisk, Ford, Davis, and Hamilton are pretty much roster locks. Deshaun Johnson and Laurel Murchison, if they carry 7, those would be the 2 front runners. But there's some guys that we like, a free agent, a little bit of a journeyman, Jack Heflin, 6'3", 304, and then the 2 undrafted free agents, Bill Norton, 6'6", 335, DeJohn Terry, 6'3", 330, and I'm guessing Norton and Terry were drafted as big body run stuffers, so I would think they have the potential to be a backup to Poona Ford, perhaps. So I don't know, do you think these, and Deshaun Johnson and Laurel Murchison have played well when they've had their opportunities. Deshaun really, I think he had a couple splash plays late in the season last year. So how do you feel? I know that's a lot to digest. How do you feel about this defensive line and how it's all going to shake out?
I think they will carry 7. I think one of the my gut says that Terry, the guy from Oklahoma.
Yeah, I know you like him. Yeah.
Yeah. If I was a betting man, I would say he beats out one of those players to make the 53. So, with that said, carrying 7, looking at the entire defense, I think they'll carry 5 outside linebackers. I think they'll carry 4 cornerbacks. I think, let's just say 9 DBs total. However,
right. Yeah. It gets confusing when you talk. Yeah. The secondary gets a little confusing when you got guys like Quentin Lake and, yeah. Fair
it's
enough.
Basically going to be 4 corners, 4 safeties plus Quentin Lake, however you distinguish that, along with 4 inside linebackers. So that should be, I think that's 25 players. So 25 offensive, 25 defensive, and 3 special teams get you your 53, right? Yeah.
Right.
So
it could go, it could go 26, 24, but for this discussion, sure.
Yeah. And if you're talking about offensive line, it gets questionable, because if you're saying that, we don't know what's going on with Lyric Jackson, maybe we have to carry an extra offensive tackle. Well, you can do that, but you can only dress What's
48,
the
is it?
I think you can only dress 48 players, and
Right.
usually you only dress 8 offensive linemen per game. So if you're carrying 10 offensive linemen, 2 of them are sitting every week. So how do you justify that against defensive players you're going to need week in and week out? So I don't. It's always a question mark is how you do that. So
that's why those swing offensive linemen are so valuable. Guys like I know Ram fans are gonna get mad, but guys like Joseph Noteboom that could basically play 4 positions, maybe not well, but he could plug them in a lot of different places. So you say 7, and your guess is Deshaun Terry. Now, Deshaun Johnson. I've always thought of him, and I could be wrong on this. I've always thought of him as more strictly a 5 technique type guy. Kind of limited how you can use him. Murchison, I think, has a little bit of more flexibility how you can use him. So that could count against Deshaun, Mr. Irrelevant from whatever year that was. But so I get basically that's what you're predicting is Terry will bump Johnson or Murchison.
Yes, but the more you think about it, it just gets more confusing because if you're talking about Poona Ford being your nose tackle, the spine of your run defense, then Davis, who we drafted from Clemson, is almost that same guy.
Yeah.
And then Hamilton, even though who we just drafted from Ohio State, he's between a run stopper and a pass rusher, he's probably a better run stopper, but he doesn't have that bulk that the other two do. So yeah, how the Rams always employ this 3-man front is I always have questions. Well, how do you do it if you don't have a true nose tackle and 2 true defensive ends? You're using players that usually fit in a 4-3 in this lineup. So
yeah, I mean, it's early. We'll get a better fix during the preseason because I'm sure Hamilton, Johnson, Murchison, Terry, Heflin, and Norton will all play a bunch. And but the thing with the Rams is, I think we've seen this too. I'm not sure how much the preseason games count, even for that. I think the scrimmages with other teams and what we don't see in camp. The preseason games might be a final sanity check on the way they're leaning with different players because we've seen guys just have incredible preseasons, preseason games and entire preseasons, and then next thing you know they're cut. So yeah, you just never know because the Rams, the way the Rams do business, but they get it right. It seems like they get it right most times.
Yes, true.
Well, that was good stuff, Scott. Thank you for joining. Just some random Ram stuff to talk about. I could probably easily come up with another 10, 15 questions, but I think 7 is enough for tonight. And thanks.
We can do
thanks
more
a lot.
later.
Yeah. Maybe even next week. We'll see what happens in Maui. Maybe something will happen in Maui that spurs some additional questions. Thanks a lot, Scott. That was fun. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay. Out here. All right. Thanks.